Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys watching the video and spending some time with me today. We're going to be talking about how you can't convince some anglers to do certain things, even if it's in their own best interest to do that. I want to share with you guys a couple different examples of some techniques that I have fished with anglers. I tried to convince them to try it, they wouldn't try it, and didn't catch many fish as a result of that. And then sort of tie it in a little bit to anglers in general about how you need to walk a fine line between being open-minded and trying new things and then committing to certain things. We'll get into that both in today's video. And okay guys, just a real quick thank you to everybody. You guys have been hearing me talk about it. Everybody that's been using Tackle Warehouse links and my video description links. I really appreciate you guys supporting the channel by doing that. And if you like the videos here and you're looking for a way to give back to the channel, by using those links I put into the video description, that's probably the best way you can do it. So thank you very much, everybody, on that. I'll tell you a couple story, guys. Here's what I'm talking about how you just can't convince somebody. One of them was with my buddy Aaron Martins, who passed away a couple of years ago. And I'll never claim to be even half the angler Aaron Martins was. Aaron Martins was one of the greatest anglers to ever pick up a fishing rod. And we bounced a lot of ideas off of each other. And the relationship that Aaron and I had fishing a little bit is that we had two different styles, but we both learned a lot from each other. I tried to teach him what I knew about shallow water skills, and he tried to teach me a lot what he knew about finesse fishing and offshore fishing. And I think we both benefited from it. But one of the ongoing debates that Aaron and I had is I always tried to convince him that you need to use a spinning rod for jerkbait fishing. And, we went back and forth on this, and finally we were fishing together one day on Stockton Lake. It was a winter time. And I go, dude, I'm gonna show you right now how much better a spinning rod is than a bait caster, because I can promise you I can cast a jerkbait farther with a spinning rod and get it down deeper than you can with your bait caster. And he was adamant that he couldn't do it, that I couldn't do it. It's like, there's no way, man. I can't remember what he was using, some high dollar bait caster. He goes, there's no way I can cast this thing a country mile. So we got out there, and of course, I had my, jerkbait on my 6 and 8 pound test fluorocarbon with my Megabass spinning rod. And to make a long story short, I outcasted him by about probably 15 feet on a long cast with that. And he just would never acknowledge that. It's like it was so hard for him to accept that defeat. And he never would change to spinning rod. He got so comfortable with the bait caster that he never went to the spinning rod. And as a result, he, out of all the success that Aaron had throughout the course of his career, I don't think he had any high finishes or wins on a jerkbait that I can think of. I think he used one partially to win the US Open one year at Lake Mead, but he was casting with the wind with the bait caster, so he got some extra distance. But anyway, that's one example that how you can't convince somebody. And another example I'll use you, and I've actually mentioned this before in a video last year. This is a prime example of it. One of the most common type of people that you cannot convince are co-anglers. When you try to help them out, for whatever reason, co-anglers are some of the most, not all of them, but so many of them are the most stubborn people I've ever met. And anyway, I was at a tournament at Lake Okeechobee. This is an FLW tournament. And in practice, I was practicing with one of the most famous co-anglers of all time. His name was Frank Divis. And Frank passed away a couple of years ago. And Frank practiced with me back then in quite a few of the tournaments. And Frank, all the success he had, he was one of the all-time leading money winners on the FLW Tour co-angler side. And all he fished was a football head jig. And all he did was drag it behind the boat. It's like, I fished with him all over the country, and whatever we were, it doesn't matter where it was, he would throw a football head jig out the back of the boat and just sit there and hold it like that. So anyway, the water was low at Okeechobee, and we were paralleling some steep banks in the Rim Canal. If you guys have fished Lake Okeechobee, if you don't know what it is, Lake Okeechobee there's a canal that basically goes around most of the lake, a man-made canal, and it's the only deep water in the lake, and there's some pretty sharp rocky banks on this Rim Canal. And I was paralleling the bank tight with a jerkbait, so Frank didn't have anywhere to cast, which he never does anyway. He always just drug it behind the boat. And he started dragging this football head jig and a Carolina rig, both, behind the boat. And he wound up, every day of practice, he caught a limit of fish. He'd catch 8 or 9 keepers doing it. So anyway, the first day of the tournament, and I've told this story, some of you guys may have remembered it, but it's a good example of what I'm talking about here. The first day of the tournament, I draw this guy, and you know, we get out there, and I explained to him what the deal is. I said, man, I go, this is a steep bank, and I go, I have got to parallel this bank. I go, I can't catch a single, if I cast at a 45-degree angle, I'll never catch a fish. These fish are on the bank in 3 or 4 foot of water, and I've got to cast my jerkbait parallel to get it in the strike zone. And I could tell he wasn't happy about that. This guy did not like what was fixing to happen. And I said, but I go, my co-angler in practice, he caught a limit of fish every day, just casting a Carolina rig and a football head jig out of the back of the boat. And he caught a limit every day doing it. So I'm confident you can catch your limit doing that. So anyway, he was grumbling a little bit, and he started fishing. We hadn't been out there for 10 minutes, and I turned around, and he is laying down in the back of the boat. Like literally, he quit fishing. He's laying down on his back like he's asleep. And I go, what's the matter? I said, you okay? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm not gonna fish like this. This isn't fishing. He goes, this is ridiculous. I will not fish like this. And I'm like, dude, did you hear what I just said? My partner, my co-angler caught limits every day dragging that thing behind the boat. I go, you got something against catching a limit of fish? Because you'll catch a limit if you do that. I'm not gonna fish like that. So anyway, there's nothing I could do to convince that guy. So some anglers, they're so locked in to how they wanna fish and what they think works for them that they never open their minds up to any other techniques. Now, in fishing, guys, there's 2 different approaches, and actually there's 2 different approaches, but you sort of have to morph them into each other. Versatility is important in fishing, but versatility can also hurt you, because if you try to be a versatile angler and you try to do everything, use every technique that's out there, you'll never become a master at one technique. And the only way that you can really have, if you're a tournament fisherman, one of the only ways is you'll ever win consistently or finish high is you got to have a handful of techniques that you have mastered. And through mastery, it eliminates versatility out there. But you can also be super successful and consistent being versatile, but you're not going to win very much. So there's a paradox that goes with there. So one of the things in fishing, you sort of have to decide amongst yourself as far as the approach you want to take. Do you want to go all in on 1 or 2 different techniques and master that? And then when you go to the lake, you stay with those techniques, but you look for the water where you can use those techniques? Or do you want to be versatile and be able to do anything that it takes all over the lake, whatever it takes to catch a fish? And for me personally, that's always been a dilemma, because I've vacillated back and forth by trying to be a specialist. Like my specialty is flipping and pitching for the most part, and jerkbait, and all the tournaments I've ever won, except for one in my career, have been on flipping and pitching. Or do I want to be versatile? And what happened in me in my career is, early on in my career, the first half of my career, I was a specialist. All I did is flip and pitch almost all the time, and that's when I won all my tournaments. And when I started to become, but I was inconsistent in doing that, and I decided I wanted to be more consistent. So I made a commitment to be a versatile angler. And when I started working on my versatility, I became good at a lot of different techniques, but I wasn't great at them. And my wins fell off to nothing, and my overall consistency did too. So really you have to figure out what works for you. I think one of the best things to do out there is to have an open mind. If you see something that works, you need to try it, but it has to feel right to you. In bass fishing, one of the most important things, you have to feel like you're going to catch a fish every cast, or a quality fish. You have to feel good about what you're doing. If you feel good about putting a jig on your hand and flipping it all day, do it. If you feel good about weenie worming around out there, looking at your live scope, don't do it. Resist that urge to do it. Well, that's my opinion, but if that's the way you want to fish, more power to you in terms of, just things that you like to do. Some guys are finesse anglers, some guys are power fishermen, some guys like spinning rods, some guys like moving baits, some guys like slow baits. A little bit works for everything. A prime example is Larry Nixon and Rick Clunn. I mean, Larry Nixon, he gained fame and he had a stellar career fishing super slow, dragging a worm. He was a slow fisherman. Every time you saw Larry, he's leaning back on his butt seat and he's going like this. it worked for him. Rick Clunn, on the other hand, every time you saw him, he was standing up in the front of the boat, you know, cranking that square bill a lot of times. So everything will work under the right situation. So anyway, my advice, guys, is just, you know, keep an open mind. You know, if somebody tries to convince you of something, don't try to get all bullheaded about it. You know, at least assimilate that information and then decide afterwards if it's for you or not. So hope you guys are doing well. We'll talk later.